Hi, and welcome to Econolicy Africa's Policy Conversations. Today, I have an esteemed panel from the CCPC Zambia, and it promises to be an exciting conversation. I have with me Mr. Parret Muteto and Mr. James Chalungumana, and we'll be discussing the CCPC's role in making Zambia's markets competitive. My name is Oluwatobi Ogundele, and I'll be your host for today. So I'll briefly ask our gentlemen to introduce themselves. They'll tell us their role at the CCPC and what that role entails. And then I'll issue a disclaimer before we get right into the questions. So I'll start with Mr. Parret Muteto. Can you please tell us what your role at the CCPC is and what that entails?
Thank you very much, Oluwatobi. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, Oluwatobi.
Oluwatobi. I'm the chief analyst with the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission here in Zambia. And my role really is policy, planning, research, liaison, and also support in terms of technical support to investigative departments. In short, that's what my role entails.
Thank you. Thanks.
I've been with the commission for 12 years now, plus, I think. Having joined as a commission as a junior officer and now to chief analyst.
Thank you. Thanks for that very succinct introduction. So I'll pass it on to Mr. James Chalungumana to say what his role at the CCPC Zambia is and what that entails.
Hello, Olu. Good to speak to you again. And good day to the viewers out there. So as has been mentioned, my name is James Chalungumana. I am Chief Investigator for Consumer Protection. And my role is mainly enforcing consumer protection, making sure that consumers are not exposed to unfair trading practices, which we will obviously discuss more about. Also, we create awareness because although you might be aware that it's not always about enforcing the law, it's also having situations or creating an environment where all the parties are aware of the obligations, and as such, we have reduced instances of investigations on unfair trading practices. But ideally, in a nutshell, my role is to ensure that there's enhanced consumer welfare across the economy of Zambia.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction, James. So before we go into the questions, I'm going to issue a quick disclaimer that for myself and for my panelists, our views that we express are ours, and they do not reflect the views or opinions of the organizations that we are employed by. So my first question for the panel for today's discussion is, can you tell us, I'll start with Parret, can you tell us a little bit about the current state of competition in Zambia's markets and what exactly the CCP's role is, what the mandate of the CCPC is in this space?
Okay, all right, Olu. Basically, the role of the commission is to safeguard and promote competition. So we enforce the law. Of course, that's a commercial and trade law, but it's a competition and consumer protection law. So it has got two parts. There's the competition enforcement part and consumer protection part, because the fruits of competition obviously affect consumers. If you look at the state of competition generally, you are looking at an economy that initially was centralized and it's moving towards some kind of free market economy. Of course, it's been over years, but you find that in most of the sectors of the economy, there still remain what I would call legacy enterprises, which were dominant because they were state-owned, and in most cases we're the only ones in those particular sectors. But over time, we have seen entry into these sectors. I can cite instances of the cement sector. We have a number of players now in the cement sector, in the sugar sector, in the telecom sector, in the insurance, in the banking. So we have seen entry in these particular sectors and in many, many other sectors of the economy. And because of also the enforcement part that was first kicked in with the formation of the commission and its work in 1994 and then commencement in 1997, then the competition and the enhancement in terms of consumer protection in 2010, the competition culture has slowly been enhanced, so to say. You see a lot more adherence to competition tenants. You see a lot more players now understanding the need to avoid engaging themselves into vices that otherwise would be considered anti-competitive. So in terms of where we are now, I think we have a good grip of the competition culture. Of course, more needs to be done, and a whole lot more markets need to be opened. But with the supportive environment that we currently have, I think the competition culture and generally the state of competition in Zambia is something that we can safely say is moderately too.
So I think you got cut off a bit there.
Yes. So basically, that's where we are, and of course, there are sector regulators that also having these regulations and laws that deal with competition in their particular and specific sector spaces, just to try and promote the culture of competition. So we are seeing more adherence to competition tenants in a number of sectors, which is good. And then, of course, the fruits of competition, like I said, is consumer welfare. You have choice. You have competitive prices, which now James deals with. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that response, Mr. Parret. James, do you have anything to add to that question on the current state of competition in Zambia's markets and what you personally see the CCPC's mandate to be in that space?
Yeah, so I think, as has been mentioned by Parret, there's need for CCPC to come into the market and just see wherever there are market failures. And also, you know, consumers are vulnerable. So wherever we have an increase in the amount of trade that's going on, we see a corresponding increase with the amount of, or the instances of unfair trading practices that tend to occur. So we are aware that the economy is booming, markets are thriving, but also we know that because of this thriving, we have players who want to come and make some quick money or some quick profit off that. And as such, we are in a situation where the expanded level of trade culminates into a somewhat increased level of instances of unfair trading practices. So I think we are at a point where many consumers, many market players are becoming aware of their obligations and their rights on both sides of the equation. And we are glad that there's some instances that are being resolved before reaching the commission, because self-awareness really is something that I think we have been preaching. Also, I think I'd like to mention that an important aspect is that our law was further amended I know Parret touched on the law that we used at inception, but now our law has been further amended. And one exciting inclusion on the consumer protection side is the aspect of unconscionable conduct. So the prohibition of unconscionable conduct, which is conduct that we deem to be harsh and defies logic, is something that appeared in many other legislations at international and regional level, but was absent in ours. So I think that will further help us to strengthen the state of consumer protection in Zambia.
Thank you. Thanks for your response. I'll move to the next question, and that's on consumer protection. And I like that you mentioned, James, that you do have businesses trying to make a quick buck off consumers. So I guess we know as people in this space, in the competition space, that consumer protection is a key component for a proper functioning and competitive market. Can you unpack for us a little bit what consumers are being protected from?
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Olu. So when you think about it, every market player, every product or every service ultimately is consumed by that one consumer, a unit of a consumer. It may be a wholesaler or a retailer participating in the chain of distribution. Ultimately, their goal is to get money from a consumer. So I think the consumer remains the most important player in the equation, but at times they seem to be the most neglected. Oftentimes there's information asymmetry between producers or distributors or retailers and the consumers themselves. And mostly consumers have low bargaining power. They do not have someone to speak for them. And there are several instances that we find that consumers are treated in a way that they should not be treated. There's many unfair trading practices that our law recognizes that consumers must be protected from. So for instance, there's unfair contract terms, which are very common in the financial sector. We have loans all being given out and a consumer is being told to sign a 10-page document almost in an instant. And you find that the service provider is even holding the corner of that paper where the staple is, and they're holding it just so that desperate consumer won't see that there's price gouging in terms of excessive interest that will be going on. So we look at price display as well. Our law recognizes that when a price is displayed, a consumer must not be charged anything above that price. So if they are charged something that's more than that price, then the commission steps in and reprimands that business and gets a refund, which is the difference between those two prices for a consumer. We have defective products. We have electronic products, we have gadgets, we have all sorts of things that do not perform or function the way they are supposed to. And CCPC looks at all of that. We also have product labeling. So although you might want to know that when products are labeled, they must have the manufacturer's details in terms of the name of the manufacturer, the address, and their contact details. Also the product name, and further, if it's foodstuffs or chemicals, there must also be ingredients stated on such products. But further to that, the law that we enforce recognizes that it must be in the official language. We have only English as the official language in Zambia currently. So all of the labels must be, they must conform to those standards, but in English. And there's several other things, although there's product safety, we do protect consumers from products that do not meet the mandatory safety standards, or they do not meet the prescribed standards by the standards agencies. So there's several unfair trading practices that we protect consumers from. But I think I'll delve deeper into how we do that. It's not always about enforcing the law. Just to quickly mention that yesterday we had 395 people being taught for free as financial service providers on the provisions of the law and how they can avoid being caught on the wrong side of things. We also have, that's one proactive engagement we have with several enterprises. We also have memorandums of understanding with plenty players of common interest. Some are sector regulators that Parret mentioned. These sector regulators are also enforcing competition and consumer protection laws. Although although CCPC remains the primary advocate or the primary authority on those two aspects, but we do also tap on their ability to be experts in those fields because they narrow down on particular sectors. We also enforce the law through inspections, compliance checks. Also, the law is fortunate enough to allow us to conduct investigations and only notify a party we're investigating at a point where we feel that our investigations will not be jeopardized. So all of those are things that we use in trying to ensure mainly two things: that a consumer gets, number one, appropriate or sufficient redress. Number two, that appropriate or sufficient redress all must be timely. You may get back the money you lost, but if it's coming back after 1 year, then it defeats the whole purpose. So basically, those are some of the things we are doing on the consumer protection side. And like I mentioned earlier, it's exciting times because we've just had an enhancement of our consumer protection regulations. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you very much for that response. And it's very interesting to hear about the work that the CCPC is doing in protecting consumers. It's very progressive. For the third question, Parret, I would like us to talk a bit about an important tool for competition enforcement. Most jurisdictions see it as a complement to the work of investigation that competition authorities do, and it's market studies and also market inquiries. And I know that the CCPC has, shown that prioritizing this in the work of enforcement is significant. So my question there is, what is the motivating factor for this? What have you seen from conducting market studies or market inquiries that makes you stick to it? Have there been benefits to competition enforcement from conducting these market studies? So if you can tell us what market studies are in general and what benefits you've seen that motivates the authority to continue to do them. Mr. Parret.
Okay, Olo. Thank you very much for that question. As it stands now, we have both studies and inquiries. So basically, they have been structured in that way. Studies, they are more of a voluntary information request that you go into the market, you are investigating a particular aspect of the market. Then you can go in with a study, and we have been doing studies over time. We have done a number of studies in a whole number of sectors. Inquiries, on the other hand, follow the legal process, and there are certain obligations that are placed on the participants to the inquiry. In short, it is more of an investigation, but not of a particular individual or enterprise, but of a particular agreement or sector. So you are dealing with a sector or an agreement in that particular sector or lack of, or you are dealing with the issues of public interest that may be at stake in a particular sector or industry. So it follows a particular set of process that is legally provided for. And parties are obliged to respond to a market inquiry. So that's the difference. And what we have seen over time is it provides a rich source of information to do your advocacy, okay? And then advocacy becomes an alternative to enforcement. It is not always that you need to go in with a heavy hand and instill discipline in a market, but you can also do so through advocacy. You can convince participants to change course through evidence that you then gather through either a study or a market inquiry. And over time, it has also provided the commission with an opportunity to highlight those issues that otherwise are not able to be addressed by the law, because the law can only contain so many provisions. But there are issues that affect competition or consumer protection that don't necessarily sit in the current law, but then those ones can easily be flagged out either with another sector regulator or with the government, particularly the ministry where we fall under, for change either in a regulation, change either in terms of policy, or change in terms of laws. We have seen these actually popping up in a number of instances where laws themselves affect competition. Pronouncements by government officials at higher level having an impact on competition, and these then reflect even the conduct of certain ministries affecting competition. So through research, then you can highlight how the competition in those particular sectors have been affected, and then you can raise the issue or the need to change course. Currently, we are working on a number of studies and inquiries, and increasingly now, it's not only regional studies, both through the associations we affiliate to, for example, the African Competition Forum, again under COMESA. So we do collaborative research. We also have other avenues that we look at, because markets now are easier profiled when you are looking at them from a regional perspective. There are things that are being imported into the country that already are tainted with anti-competitive conduct. So when they come here, on the face of them, you might find them to be normal. But if you then go out there and look from the regional perspective, that's when you see that actually these things are above normal in terms of their pricing, or their cartel products, or they are as a product of abuse of dominance, and it's emanating from this particular jurisdiction. So it's easy to then deal with them, even if you then do your investigations, you have somewhere to start from, because then you'd have gathered the evidence from these markets. So basically, that's what research and inquiries have helped the commission over time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that response. So I'll move on to the next question. And this is on, the changes we are seeing now. We hear a lot about digital markets, and markets are data-driven. So this question is two-pronged, and it's firstly, the day-to-day work of the CCPC, James. How has there been an increased uptake of artificial intelligence, data analytics in just your investigations on a day-to-day? And then a second part of that question will be that in ensuring that these digital markets are competitive, I'm sure you might have heard about the European Union's Digital Markets Act, and I think India is also treading this line. And these jurisdictions are finding that they need a supplement to the Competition Act to regulate this digital market. So those will be the platform, online markets, your messenger services, etc. So in general, is the CCPC, taking all this in and preparing to elevate its investigative efforts So what level of preparedness is on ground in your day-to-day work? And what are you learning from these jurisdictions in how you regulate this digital platform markets?
Okay, thank you, Olu. I think there's been many advances in technology, and they've disrupted the brick and mortar way of doing things. And definitely the CCPC is not left out on that. To start with, we have, even in our investigations, realized that even if it's not as complicated as algorithms, but we have, for instance, cartel participants communicating electronically. Agreements are no longer written on paper also, we have to ensure that we match that sophistication with our own level of sophistication. So for instance, we've had the development of an internal case management system, which we are currently using. It has automated some of our services, but we are in the process of enhancing that aspect. We are also in consideration for the development of a forensic lab, because currently as it is, we take our electronic gadgets for forensic extraction or forensic analysis to the sector regulator in charge of ICTs in Zambia. So that might bring its own challenges in terms of maybe timelines and things like that. We are also looking at how other jurisdictions have used technology and how they have embraced it. For example, our colleagues in Egypt, for example, have a very sophisticated forensic lab. And also last year I was in Kenya. They too are using a lot of technology or digitization in the way they are analyzing and extracting and assessing the information. So some of the challenges I think Parret will talk to is, the assessment of big data. If you have bunches of data from the market collected during these market studies, I think it becomes a challenge if you are manually assessing or analyzing this data. So we do have an ambitious program to digitize, but all of digitization is very costly, not only on the financial aspect side, but also on the human resource side, because you might need expert or specific human resource skills. It could be training, capacity building, and all of that, but we do also recognize that there is an inherent cost, and we could be ambitious, but we need to be also realistic to the cost that's involved. So we have had also, several cases on the AI front, or even just e-commerce itself. Sometimes we're faced with jurisdictional challenges. A consumer is in Zambia, they purchase something using their phone, the host of the server is in the US, the product is in Asia, So the question is, who are you going to investigate in case there's a failure of that particular service and you want to get maybe redress for a consumer? So as much as we are trying to digitize, we also have to look at the basics in the digital economy, because those are some of the things that you might get advanced technology, but if you have not dealt with the simple emerging issues in e-commerce, you might have challenges even using that technology. So I think we are now at a point where our investigative processes are being digitized. We have a case management system, as I mentioned. The public is able to tap into that, whether as consumers or as enterprises applying for a particular service, such as mergers or notification of a vertical agreement. So we have started an ambitious project or an ambitious path to embrace technology, obviously identifying that the digital economy is the way to go and we need to be able to identify these things as they're happening. I mean, cartels now are happening, like you said, on Messenger, on Twitter, and no one is writing letters in pen and then having to pass it on for everyone to sign on a dinner table. I think it's becoming more and more sophisticated, and I think that we need to really embrace the technology. But like I've mentioned, we are also alive to the cost and other such implications, such as specialized human resource that are associated with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that response. And I must say, just hearing from you, the case management system, and then your learnings from Egypt and Kenya, I think Zambia is in a good place, and it's very progressive. And I know I've used this word previously, progressive, because remember, I've had conversations with other authorities, about 4 or 5 by now. And I know that, compared to those, what you've spoken about seems to be definitely ahead of the curve in terms of just thinking about the digital markets and how competition work will change and how it needs to change. Because like you said, people are not signing these agreements in paper anymore. It's online, everything is online. So it's very interesting to hear this. And I wish Zambia all the best in regulating digital markets. So my next question is for Mr. Muteto for Parret, and it's on the African Continental Free Trade Area. So sometime in 2023, after release the competition protocol, and it says that there will be a supranational competition authority for the region. And I was just interested in knowing, and this is one question I've asked other authorities, what their initial reaction to this is. Have you been excited about the prospect of having just one competition authority for overseeing cross-border issues and enforcing competition law on the continent? Is it something to look forward to, or is it a bit premature in your opinion? So I just wanted to get your initial reaction on that. And, if this, becomes real, I think it's going to become real because the protocol is there, obviously. What should be the first point of call of this authority in, enforcing competition law on the continent?
Okay, that's a very, very interesting question. And I personally have been part of the various meetings that have culminated into the protocol on competition law. Unfortunately, during the discussions, I think we came to understand that from the main agreement, it only provided for competition and not necessarily consumer protection, which is a little bit different from the tripartite and the protocol, which provides for both competition and consumer protection. But by and large, the principles are basically the same. You are dealing with competition issues, both ex ante and ex post issues like major regulation. We're dealing with dominance. You're dealing with cartels and other forms of restrictive business practices. It of course it's good that we have a regional law, so to say, that will look at competition per se. Like I think, like I initially said, that markets are now more or less regional in nature. Okay, Africa is being carved out by players. You find that if you really do a scoping, there are territories that have been parceled to themselves. All right. On the face of it, if you're looking at it on a national level, you may fail to see exactly what is happening. But if you look at it from a regional perspective or a continental perspective, then you can get a better picture of what really is going on. And so the coming in of this law is expected to deal with these issues. There was an issue of how then it will work, given that competition law already exists in some countries and in regional blocks. And of course, that debate went on, and I think eventually it was settled that there will be this introduction of continental dimension aspect to what the authority to be will look at. And so regional competition authorities will continue to exist and do their work. National competition authorities will continue to exist and do their work. And it's all of those aspects that then cross these regs that will go to the continental regional law. Going forward, what should the supranational authority do as it prepares to start work? Of course, every institution needs to put its house in order. In terms of institutional arrangements, we need to have the right people in place. I know there will be a tribunal that will be set up. Again, an issue of who will be part of that tribunal, the appeal process, how will it work? Eventually, cases, how they will be settled in finality. The protocol itself provides for instances where regulations need to be developed. You're looking at the definition of abuse of dominance, thresholds for measures, and a number of areas. I think it was just yesterday, we had some preliminary meetings, and I know there are some meetings coming next week, where an active discussions are now going on into the development of these regulations. So going forward, if we are to have traction, then it means we have to put these things in place, making sure that the institution itself, the appeal mechanism, the structure itself, the supporting policies and laws and regulations, they are all in place so that then it's a smooth flow going forward. But we look forward to this supranational authority, and given the discussion that are going on, I see a lot more of collaboration with regional authorities and national authorities than anything else. That's what I see.
Thank you very much for that response. I think it was very holistic. And even though you don't mention it, you don't put it in words, I know you are excited about having this supranational authority. I know other guests on some of the other interviews I've had have maybe been a bit hesitant and said it's a bit premature for Africa to have one, body, and they were a bit concerned about how the national competition authorities will fit into that new vision. But well, you sound confident, and I share your confidence in seeing how this will play out. It's still early stages, so we'll be here watching, seeing how everything goes. I'm tempted to ask one last question, and it's for both yourself and for James. And as competition practitioners, and you've been in this space for years, what has been the highlights of your careers in terms of what have you found most interesting about working in the field of competition law enforcement? And I'll leave it to either of you to leave us with those parting words before we end the conversation.
Look, let me just, if you will, stick to what you just mentioned previously, that there was some hesitation. I fully understand and appreciate where some national authorities might be coming from. And I think we saw this at the creation of the Commercial Competition Commission, which is now sitting in Malawi, where countries were hesitant to sign up to the idea of the creation of the authority. But as we speak, it's been existing and it's doing its work, and national competition authorities are continuing to do their work. It's different from the static arrangement where it's based on cooperation. there hasn't been any drive towards the creation of a supranational competition authority, best known to, of course, the ministerial experts. But if you look West Africa, they have moved ahead and created the East Africa Competition Authority. So the coming in of the ACFTA, really, it's an amalgamation of these that are already existing. Even if you look at the protocol itself, it heavily draws from the tripartite and the commercial regulations. And it has provided for RECs and national authorities to continue doing their work. The only difference is that it will come in when issues become continental, and there's a provision for how the continental dimension will be defined. And so I know at times it's an issue of what happens then in terms of country interests. How would they be addressed from the continental level? And I think these have been the discussions even at commercial level, because as a grouping, at times your interest may not supersede the group's interest, and so your interest may be sidelined somehow through either measures and abuse of dominance. But these are things that over time you can carve out and request that certain cases be looked into necessarily. Personally, having been with the competition authority and dealing with competition and consumer protection issues, I think it's been an exciting journey. I've learned a lot. This is a specialized area. It's very different from what we learn in school. And just getting deeper into understanding markets now through studies, inquiries, I think gives me an opportunity to really appreciate what really goes on in business. All right, because at the end of the day, we exist not to punish business, we exist to support business. So you can only exist as a regulator to support business if you fully understand what really goes on in business. And from a competition perspective, then that gives you an opportunity to drive and to dive deep into how business operates, what affects business, as well as also the policy and regulatory aspects of it. So you are in the middle of it. And then you have to play a balancing act to ensure that you support business as well as ensure that as they do their business, it's contributing to economic growth as well as to consumer welfare in a manner that is a win-win situation. So it's been an exciting journey, and I look forward to the many years to come, hopefully, to be in the competition mode.
Yeah, thank you, Parret. So James, you've been in this space for some years now, and what has been the highlight for you? What do you enjoy most about the competition space? Because I know you definitely enjoy it, so we're not debating on the enjoyment of it.
No, thank you, Olu. It's been an exciting 10 years. I clocked 10 years earlier this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I think, like Parret has said, it's watching economics in action. It's a really practical application of economics, but for me, the highlight is scoring wins really for consumers. And this could be through many ways. You know, the consumer is a vulnerable party. The consumer is one with less bargaining power, one with less information of whatever product or service or contracts they're entering into. So standing there like a shield or a guardian for them really gives me that satisfaction. And over the years, I've been privileged to lead about 3 high-level dawn raids on cartels. Again, those are wins for consumers because without our intervention, there's no win for that particular consumer. They're the ones who pay through their nose. Also, I think a recent major highlight is I was privileged to lead a team that conducted a dawn raid, but on the consumer side, and it resulted in hefty fines and the seizure of goods worth about $2 million kwacha. If I could put that into perspective, we're talking about $100,000 US. So I think those are wins for consumers. And for me, it's just being able to stand for a consumer, being there for them when they can't be there for themselves, when they can't speak for themselves, and also just being that guardian person they can run to, obviously using the law that we enforce, and using the various methods. It's not all about a dawn raid. It's about awareness for both parties. It's about checking the operations. It's about advising government on laws affecting competition. It's about checking the state of competition in certain sectors. I think all of those things have been really enjoyable over the years. And like Parret, I hope there's many, many more years to come. And hope we can continue providing our little contributions to consumers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen. So we have come to the end of the conversation. I wish we could go on, but it's been very fruitful and interesting just to hear about your journey and the work that the CCPC is doing. And I'm very sure that the Zambian consumers appreciate all this effort. And I mean, this is another avenue for them to hear and watch and just know more about the work being done on their behalf. Thank you very much. And I wish the CCPC even more successes in the next few years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Olu, and look forward to more interactions with you.
Thank you.